You probably cut strawberries hundreds of times in your life, maybe to put them in a dessert, on a cake, or simply to eat them with sugar. But there's a curious detail that almost no one notices. In fact, most people make the same mistake every time they cut a strawberry, and they don't even realize that this might be making them lose the best part of the fruit. And the most surprising part? This mistake is so common that you can even see it in restaurants, professional kitchens, and cooking videos. Today you're going to discover what this mistake is, why it happens, and a curious detail about strawberries that might completely change the way you cut this fruit from now on. Once you notice it, you'll probably never look at a strawberry the same way again. The fruit everyone thinks they know. Strawberries are one of the most popular fruits in the world. They appear in cakes, pies, ice cream, juices, smoothies, and countless desserts. Their sweet and slightly tangy flavor has won people over in almost every country. But even though strawberries are such a common fruit in our daily lives, there are curious details about them that almost nobody notices. One of them appears exactly at the moment when we cut the fruit. When someone grabs a strawberry to prepare a dessert, the first thing they usually do is simple: cut off the top part, that green area called the crown or stem. It's an automatic gesture. The knife goes in, the top part is removed, and that's it. But it's exactly at that moment that many people end up making a mistake. A small mistake, but one that can make you lose an important part of the strawberry's flavor. The mistake almost everyone makes. The most common way to cut a strawberry is by removing only the green top. But many times, along with that green part, people end up removing a large portion of the red fruit. This happens because, to make the cut easier, the knife goes a little deeper than it should. The result? A considerable piece of the flesh ends up being thrown away along with the stem. It may seem like a small thing, but if you pay close attention, you'll notice that this happens almost every time, especially when someone needs to cut many strawberries quickly. In professional kitchens, this is known as pulp waste, and depending on how the cut is made, you might be discarding one of the sweetest parts of the fruit. The detail almost nobody notices. There's a small secret in the structure of a strawberry. The part just below the stem often concentrates a large amount of flavor. This happens because the natural sugars of the fruit are distributed differently inside it. In many ripe strawberries, the area near the top can have a perfect balance between sweetness and acidity. But when the knife goes too deep to remove the stem, that region ends up being discarded. In other words, many people remove a very flavorful part of the fruit without even realizing it. And the most interesting thing is that there's a very simple way to avoid this. The way chefs cut strawberries. In professional kitchens, there is a simple technique called cone removal. Instead of cutting the top of the strawberry in a straight line, the cut is made at an angle around the stem. Basically, the knife enters at a small angle and rotates around the green part. This creates a small cone that removes only the stem without taking away too much pulp. The result? You get to use much more of the fruit, and you avoid throwing away a part that could be used in desserts, juices, or recipes. This method is simple, but few people use it in everyday life. Most people continue making the straight cut because that's how they learned to do it since childhood. But there is an even more surprising curiosity. If you look at a strawberry very carefully, you'll notice something interesting. Those tiny seeds on the outside of the fruit are not just details of the skin. Each one of them is technically an individual fruit. That's right. What we call a strawberry is considered, in botany, a structure known as an aggregate fruit. In other words, the strawberry isn't exactly a simple fruit like many people imagine. In fact, those small external structures, called achenes, are the real fruits. And the juicy red part we eat is a structure that supports these small fruits. This is one of the reasons strawberries are considered such a peculiar fruit in the world of botany. Another thing almost nobody notices. There's another interesting detail about cutting strawberries. Depending on how you cut the fruit, the flavor may seem different. This happens because the shape of the slices changes the way the fruit touches your tongue. For example, thin slices release more juice quickly. Larger pieces keep the flavor longer while you chew. That's why, in many sophisticated desserts, strawberries are cut in specific shapes. Some recipes use very thin slices. Others use halves. And some use fan-shaped cuts. All of this influences the flavor experience. A test you can try at home. If you want to try something interesting, do a small experiment. Take 2 strawberries. Cut the first one in the traditional way, removing the top with a straight cut. On the second one, try removing only the stem using the cone technique. Then compare them. Look at how much of the fruit was removed in each method. Many people are surprised to realize that the straight cut removes much more pulp than they imagined. This small experiment shows how a simple detail can make a difference. Why is this mistake so common? There are 3 main reasons why this happens. First, habit. Most people learn how to cut fruit by watching others, parents, relatives, or friends. And when a method is repeated for years, it becomes automatic. Second, convenience. The straight cut is fast. It requires less precision and can be done in seconds. Third, lack of attention to detail. Since strawberries are relatively small fruits, many people don't realize how much pulp is being discarded. But when we analyze it closely, the difference becomes clear. Strawberries also hide other curiosities. Besides this cutting detail, strawberries have many interesting characteristics. For example, they are one of the few fruits that have their seeds on the outside. A single strawberry can have around 200 small seeds on its surface. Another curiosity is that strawberries belong to the same plant family as roses. That's right. Botanically, strawberries and roses are related within the same plant family. Maybe that's why some varieties of strawberries have such a delicate and pleasant aroma. A fruit full of details. The more we observe common foods in our daily lives, the more we realize how many details go unnoticed. Strawberries are a great example of this. They seem simple, small, ordinary, but when we look more closely, we discover surprising characteristics, from the way they grow to the way they should be cut. And many times, it's precisely these small details that completely change our perception. The next time you cut a strawberry, now that you know about this small mistake, it's worth paying attention the next time you prepare this fruit. Notice how you cut it. See how much pulp is being removed along with the stem. And if you want, try the cone method. You might realize that you were discarding more strawberry than you thought. Small details like this show that even the simplest things in our daily lives can still hide unexpected curiosities. And sometimes all it takes is looking a little more closely to discover something new.